Now that we have the ability to serve different responses based on the method and the path, we can think about a way to actually serve full HTML files. Let's see how we could do that. First, we need a new folder that will hold all the static files like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So at the root of the project, let's create a new folder and we'll call it public. Okay. Before we can start reading files from the public directory though, our handler needs to know the path to the public directory. One way to do it would be to just hard-code it in the implementation of the handler, but that's not really flexible, so let's instead pass it from the outside. So the handler will have a new field, which will be called public path, and it will be of type string. And we also need a constructor so that we can pass this new public path to the handler when we create it. So we can say implement website handler, and in it we define a public function called new, and it will take a single parameter called public path that will be a string, and it will return self. In its body we just create a new handler passing the public path. Now, of course, our code will not compile because we have to pass a public path in the main.rs file when we create a new handler. In a real-world application, it would make sense for the public path to be passed in as an environment variable. Let's see how we can check for environment variables in Rust. First, we have to pull a new module from std. We want to pull the env module. And now when the process starts up, we can read the public path variable from the environment. So let's say that the public path is equal to env var. So the var function from the env module actually reads environment variables. So in here we can say that we want the public path, and because this returns a result, we have to unwrap it. And now down here, we can just call website handler new, and we can pass the public path. So now if we go back to the console and we just try to run our program, it will die instantly because we did not pass the public path environment variable to the process, so the unwrap will kill it. So to set the environment variable, we can specify public path before we run the process, and we want it to be equal to our current directory /public. And now we can say cargo run. So this would work, but it's a lot of hassle to always set an environment variable when we want to run our server for development purposes. It would be nicer if we can provide a default path in case the public path environment variable was not provided. This will speed up the local development on our project. But we can't simply hard code the public path right in our code because it will be different on different people's machines, and we want our code to be able to run on anyone's computer. What we can do instead is we can take advantage of some nice things that Cargo is doing for us. One thing that Cargo is doing when it's compiling our code is that it's setting environment variables at compile time containing different metadata. One of these environment variables contains the full path to the directory that contains the Cargo Toml file. And we know that our public directory will always be in the same directory as the Cargo Toml, so all we have to do is just read this environment variable at compile time and just append /public to it. To do that, let's create a new variable called default path, and there is a special macro called env, and this macro is used to read environment variables at compile time. So not like the runtime public path that we just set, but environment variables that were passed to the compiler. And the environment variable that we care about right now is called cargo manifest dir. Okay, to better understand what the env macro is doing, we can come back to the console and use our good old friend cargo expand to see what this code is expanded into. and we can pipe the cargo expand output to VS Code directly. And now in here, we just have to tell VS Code that this is Rust. So now we have to find where our main module is. So these are all the modules, and we see that the env macro was expanded to this path that points to the directory where the cargo Tomo file lives on my machine. So when someone else recompiles this code on their machine, this path here will be different, but it will always be correct. Okay, so we can close the expanded code, and we also want to append /public to this path. So to do that, we can use the format macro, and in format we can pass a format string that will start with whatever we pass /public, and as a second parameter we want to pass the cargo manifest directory. And now down here where we read from the environment, instead of calling unwrap, we can call unwrap or, which would check the result from this function, and if it was okay, it will return the value inside of the okay. If it was an error, it will return whatever value we pass to this method here. So here we just want to pass our default path. Let's also add a log line here so we can see what path we're using at the moment. So we can say that the public path is equal to public path. And if we go back to the console now, if we do cargo run, we see that our public path is the cargo manifest directory plus /public at the end.